Here an important point comes that Indian startups are struggling, which you mentioned in one of the last podcasts, that Indian startups, at least which are consumer startups, 10% of those startups, you don't see them making revenue or becoming profitable even the next 10 years. Can you add on that?
I think the first thing I will say is, there's obviously India is going to be a hotbed for innovation. There have been tremendous companies that came out of India. So I know, because this always happens whenever you say anything about India, is like, that is true. Like, there are fantastic companies that have come out of the Indian startup scenes. Everything I say is despite those. Because I also want to see India become better and better. And I can see the clear gaps between where the Indian ecosystem is and where the Bay Area ecosystem is. Let's talk about the Indian ecosystem. Number one issue with the Indian ecosystem is the power imbalance between VCs and founders. The power imbalance exists for several reasons. There's very few VCs and they feel like they have ball control. So founders come to them, they get to pick. That's number one. Number two, the amount of capital that these VCs have. Usually when you're trying to size the amount of capital in venture, the real bottleneck is how many new ideas can form in a given period of time. And that isn't fully elastic. Like, you can't just say, if I fund the economy $100 billion, then I will get 100 billion times 10 worth of market value from the economy. There's only a certain amount of founders that will happen at any given point of time, population-wise, and if you do all the math, and there's only a certain amount of them that will work. There's only a certain amount of markets that are able to be captured at any given point of time. So
India one, let's say, right?
In any market, but in India specifically for sure. So if you raise too much money, what does a venture firm have to do? A venture firm has to take a fund and they tell their LPs, their investors, they're telling them, I'm going to get you better returns than the market. If you want to get better returns than the market, say the market returns 15%, you're looking at 20%. Now, a startup only exits within a 7 to 10 year, a fund is a 7 to 10 year life cycle. So if you want to get 15 to 20% for your LPs on a 7 to 10 year life cycle, you do the math, you'll probably have to 4x that fund. If you have to 4x a fund, then you have to get into a lot of companies early. And usually the way venture works is some of them have to be an outsized success and they will drive a lot of your returns. If you raise too much money, then you're not going to be able to 4x the fund because your outcomes are not going to be there. So what happens in India is, because they've raised so much money, you end up funding these companies more than the value they deserve to have. And for some of that in early stage, it's obvious. Like, obviously you fund a company